This is Holocaust Remembrance Day.
It is. Yeah, 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz and other camps.
Death camps across
Hmm.
Europe. There were so many. You know, I was in Prague, and there was a tour that I was on, and the number of camps that were involved, concentration camps, death camps, they were so huge in number. They had them listed on the wall. And even the docent tour guide
Hmm.
said, many of you in America may not realize how many of these death camps there were, because we hear about Buchenwald and Auschwitz and, you know, these, if you will, higher profile places in which hundreds of thousands, even in one case up to 1 million people were killed in one place in one of these camps. But he pointed to the wall. He said, we have them all listed here. He said, look how many there are. And he said, and that is just in, I think in this area, it was just a one portion of Europe he was talking about. So it was the Nazi horror was perpetrated on a scale I don't think we really even truly understand, you know.
I have a weird, sad story. On Friday at Petaluma High School, there was a boy who had gone to school with my daughter for a bunch of years, involved in a fight. Not a boy that normally gets involved in fights. His buddy told him the Holocaust never happened. And they got into a punching thing in the hall over it. I mean, this is 2025 and people are still this way. Kids are still this way, being taught incorrectly. And so I think it can't be anything but the political climate right now. That's why we're seeing it. It has to be, right?
I think the political climate now animates it, and I think the
Mhm.
social media environment helps also fan the flames of hate. But
Mhm.
I think Jew hating and anti-Semitism is a thing that has been a scourge on the earth for a long time, since religions were invented, since tribalism took over in the form of oftentimes organized religion, and since the persecution of people. And Jews have had to endure it, but there has been nothing on the scale of anti-Semitism writ large. I mean, the
Mhm.
Holocaust was an industrialized killing of 6 million Jews in Europe, 11 million people,
Yeah.
6 million Jews. I mean, these are people of major means oftentimes. I mean, like, you know, business professionals, doctors, lawyers. And the way in which that community was isolated, demonized, and then ultimately killed, I mean, it rounded up and killed, is despicable. It's an atrocity that one really can't even imagine. And to
No.
have, you know, have it out there that it didn't happen or whatever, it's just, it's so loathsome. It's
Yeah.
so toxic. I saw an interesting reference in the world of the Holocaust and Holocaust remembrance, and I'll read it to you. I think it's actually quite instructive, and it does relate to today. It relates to contemporary time. There was an American soldier. I think this is from Steve Schmidt's Substack. I'll give it a full attribution when at the end. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it's from that. There was an American soldier from the American South captured in the Battle of the Bulge. It ended 80 years ago. His name was Master Sergeant Roderick Edmonds from Knoxville, Tennessee. He was captured by the Nazis 5 days after arriving in Belgium in December of 1944 as part of a wave of replacement troops for the final push into Germany. Incredibly, Master Sergeant Edmonds found himself at a Stalag 9B, at the head of a formation of almost 1,300 American POWs, where he was the senior soldier. He was the 26-year-old master sergeant, and he was in charge. There was not a single other officer at the camp. The Nazi commandant demanded that Sergeant Edmonds call the Jewish Americans forward and separate them out. The Nazi position was that they had impure blood and needed to be enslaved or incinerated. Coincidentally, all of this occurred on the same day that the Soviet Red Army forces overran a series of concentration camps that beggar description called Auschwitz-Birkenau in eastern Poland outside of Krakow. We've referenced it in our conversation already today. Anyway, back to Sergeant Edmonds. He refused to identify the Jewish members of his company, the Jewish Americans. The Nazi commandant held a gun to his head. Sergeant Edmund did not blink. He refused. He said they were all Jews. He then invited the Nazi officer to execute all of them as Jews and become a war criminal who would be hunted down when the war was lost.
Wow.
The Nazi commandant walked away. There were more than 300 American Jews in their prisoner ranks. They were not betrayed. E pluribus unum. He came back from the war and never said a word about any of this to anyone before he died in 1985. Today he is remembered as a righteous among the nations and as a recipient of his nation's gratitude and esteem because he was an American hero grounded in Americanism. Americanism must be defended by all of us who treasure liberty, freedom, and justice. Each are different things, and none can exist without the other. They are all under threat. When the current president of the United States decides to embrace the concepts, creeds, theories, and ideas of Adolf Hitler to rouse the emotions of his followers, it must be confronted relentlessly and factually, he goes on. Just because most political reporters don't understand what they are looking at doesn't mean it isn't happening. Ignorance is danger, not bliss in this situation. So that's from the Substack of, I think it's Steve Schmidt. Yeah, Steve Schmidt. But he tells that story, and I didn't know it.
I didn't either. You think we would? I mean, why wouldn't that be elevated and highlighted? And why wouldn't we shine a light on that as, this is what America is?
And
why is today the first time I'm ever hearing of this hero?
I mean, I'm sure there are other heroic aspects of the Holocaust. I mean, there were, we know of Schindler's List, for example, it's a high profile. These things have to get some media oxygen. But when Trump released the militia, the personal militia he had, the pardoning of those 1,500 J6ers, I mean, that, as I said, those are his brown shirts. I mean, those are essentially a weaponized paramilitary group that can do whatever they want. I mean, for me, that was a huge thing he did. And I put it up there with the coup that he tried to engineer. I mean, I know that we get lost in the hornet's nest of stuff that Trump does, but when he pardons a violent paramilitary group, in the sense that the head guys of the Proud Boys, the 3%ers, et cetera, they can walk free after violent attacks. I mean, they tried to beat police officers to death, and they used bear spray, and they used et cetera. I think it's concerning. And those are, there's our white nationalists, and they're going to continue to do the work of white nationalism. And we have Pete Hegseth, who was just confirmed as the Department of Defense head, and he has every mark, literally, of a Christo-fascist on him, and it's concerning. So I don't mean to. I think we need to remember the Holocaust on Holocaust Remembrance Day, separate from all of this on one level. I mean, it should be remembered, the atrocities perpetrated, the people involved, the specifics that we don't obviously all know. We should remember and reflect separate from everything else, but at the same time, one can't help but put it in the context and framework of contemporary society and what's happening now. And I guess That's why I point to a little bit of what we've seen just in the last couple of weeks here in America in 2025.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell, you'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.